Welcome back to My Climb and Hunt. I'm Mike, and today I'm going to walk you through how I set my paracord preset after I get my throw ball line up in the tree. All you need is some 550 paracord and some time to watch this video. So let's get to it. So before we dive into it, let's start with a little bit of precursor information before we just jump into how it gets tied on. So for those of you who are new to rope climbing and not sure what we mean by preset is essentially just referring to some kind of device that we're going to use that once we have our throw ball line in the tree, we want to take it out and leave behind something else for us so that when we come back to this tree to climb on it later, there's something there that we can attach our rope to and pull it up over the crotch. Otherwise, we won't want to leave our throw line out there on the tree until we're ready to hunt, because especially if you're going to have multiple tree stand spots, you can have one throw line, one throw ball, and have multiple presets. So that's the advantage of using something like that. You don't always have to leave a preset. If you're going to go out and stalk and hunt, run and gun one time just to see how it is, you could just carry your throw ball and your throw line, hit a tree, climb, putting your rope on the end of the throw line itself to pull it up, and you could just leave and never leave a preset behind. But if you plan on ever coming back to that spot, you have to have something to fashion in there in the term of a preset. So I use 550 paracord. There's other products you can use. This is just what I use. It's cheap. You can get a spool of 1,000 feet of this from Paracord Planet for just a few bucks. And I'll have a link in the description below on where I find that and what I have right now. I pick a color that's typically like green, some kind of bark color, so that it can kind of camouflage its way in there. That way, in case I'm hunting on public land, I don't want my preset to stand out too much. I want them to be able to kind of conceal themselves away. So that helps kind of camouflage that a little bit better. The other thing that I do is I always cut my preset and my throw line that I'm going to be using to be the maximum length of the climbing rope I use. So I climb with 80 feet of rope. That allows me to get to a 40-foot crotch. Now, very, very rarely do I go up to 40 feet, but I have the capability to do so if I were to find a situation for it. And with throw line, I don't need to, when you get these, they'll come at about 150 feet. It's not necessary, in my opinion, to carry around 150 feet of throw line. So I cut this right in half, and that allows me to hit any limb that I need. And it also serves essentially as another measuring stick for me. So if I hit the throw line on a limb and I can't reach the other end afterwards when standing on the ground, then I know that my climbing rope isn't going to get there as well when I come back later. And you can see here I have plenty of it hanging on the ground right now for this crotch up overhead. So I know that my climbing rope's going to work. And I also cut my preset, my 550 paracord, to be the same length as what I do for my throw line. So this is also the same length as my climbing rope. But just another measuring stick. It keeps it simple. I don't have to carry around the full spool of paracord in order to get one into the tree or cut it to a specific length. The other beauty of that is if I ever decide that this tree is no longer one I want to hunt from anymore, well, I can pull this paracord preset back out of it and I could use it for another tree. Whereas if I were to cut it specifically to this length, it can limit me to being able to reuse it somewhere else. The other nice thing about using paracord is that it's a little bit strong enough so that it can withstand the elements. I can leave it out here in the rain, snow, sleet, hail, all these conditions, and it will withstand time. And it can last for even a decade, if not even longer. And worst case, if this were to get busted or stolen, I'd have to come out the throw line and set it again. Or if it's still salvageable enough in the tree, I can tie another piece on to the other end and pull it back in. So those are just some of the precursors to my setup and how I approach throw line and presets. So again, I cut my throw line down to the length of my climbing rope, in this case 80 feet, and I also cut my presets to the same length as well. Both of these serve Bailey as measuring sticks for me, and it just makes it simple. I don't have to carry a bunch of stuff out in the woods. Like right now to do this video, I brought my camera with me, my throw line, and my paracord, and have to bring a knife, the spool, or any of that other stuff just to get it set for the tree. So that's enough for the precursor. Let's get into how I then get this up into the tree from my throw line and then fashion it for later. So let's get this tied up onto our throw line up in the tree. Take one in, the rest goes on the ground. Pretty straightforward. The ends of these paracords, I don't really worry about burning them down, just a simple little overhand knot just to keep it from going too erratic, but that's it. No hindrance on performance to date that I've ever observed by not doing this in any way. So I have a loop on the end of my throw line, overhand knot, just leaving myself a loop here so I can fashion in. I'll then do a highwayman's hitch at this point. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull this rope, tag in through the loop. Going to go ahead and lay that behind so I get myself this shape here. Push a bite through, so we're going to pretty much create this letter A and then snug up on this end leading out of the loop. And I will just tighten that down and we're ready to go. That's our highwayman's hitch, ready to go. You can lock it by putting the tag in through or not. I haven't had any issue with it to date by locking or not locking, so it's really going to be up to your preference if you want to do that. Nothing crazy about this approach. I'm sure a lot of you are already doing something similar to this to date. So now let's pull this up into the tree and let's talk a little bit more about setting this and fashioning the preset to the tree so it doesn't blow away or get lost for return. All right, so we got the paracord pulled down over the limb off the crotch, and now you can see my paracord roughly about that much laying on the ground. I know it's kind of hard to see because of the color, but got myself a nice bit of extra here. That's one of the other perks I like about using the same length as my climbing rope for the preset. You always get a little bit extra there to make it even easier. When it gets really snug and this gets down to the point where the ends are just hanging off the ground like this, it still works, but a thicker tree may give you some difficulty with this approach of mine. But I have yet again to really find myself hitting a 40-foot crotch where I've truly maximized this out and can't get myself a preset on there. So before I go ahead and get started, I get my ends lined up here good, and I pick a side, and what I'm going to do is put myself a loop on one of the ends. So I'll simply just fashion in an overhand knot to create a loop in this case. So essentially give myself a healthy amount here at this point. A bigger loop is easier to work with. I'll go around my finger with that bite and then replace my finger with that as such. And there we have it. There's the first step. So this loop serves two purposes. One, so I can then put this end of the paracord onto this loop as well. And then two, when I go to pull my climbing rope up, I will have an end loop on my climbing rope so that I can hook into this loop and pull on this end. So I'm effectively then ready, once I uninstall this from the tree, to just hook in and start pulling up at that point. So I recommend using an approach like this just to save yourself a couple extra movements as you're getting yourself set up to get up there. So now, same deal as what we did to get the throw line, or I should say the preset on the throw line to pull up. I put myself a highwayman's hitch in this case. So we're going to go ahead, tie another one on here. You already saw me tie one earlier, so we don't need to necessarily slow down too much on this one. And there we have it. So now we have one giant loop coming off of our tree at this point. So now, got to get this onto the tree itself. And why does that matter? Well, because you can see it just hanging here, this will just really start blowing around and waving in the wind, and we don't want that. I actually have had cases where my preset, when not fashioned onto the tree, just to experiment with this, I tried it. I found it being snagged up into a sapling over here close by, or even up into a tree that has higher branches if we had a really windy day. So I wouldn't let it just hang there. In this case, I would try to at least fashion it to the tree. And I'm going to show you right now exactly how I do that. So take your ends coming off of the crotch coming down. Keep that in one hand here. Really then just going to heave this end that we just put the highwayman's hitch into around the tree and catch it onto our left side. I tend to do everything right-handed, so everything works right to left for me. Alright, so I have my preset coming around the tree at this point now. I have the end going up into the limb in my right hand, and I have the highwayman's hitch in the left hand over here. So what I would do then at this point, taking the end that's coming off of my crotch, I would pull down after I have my paracord. What I usually try to aim for is a bit above eye level. So Camera angle is actually at my eye level, so I have my hand a little bit higher than that at this point. I'm going to go ahead and put my hand underneath this way and essentially be ready to receive the end coming off of the left side of the tree in this case. Pass that loop in there, go ahead and pull it down in. And then what I'm going to do is use the end that went through to snug up and work this preset tighter against the tree. So essentially, in a way, almost like a little girth hitch, but not exactly the same thing. So now I have this sort of cross pattern at this point. This is going up into the crotch. This is going around the hose, coming back in and being fed in over the line coming off the crotch. Now, I can't just leave it like this. I do one final move. I'm actually just going to go right up over top of this line coming into on the L. So I want to come in on the back side of the L, this being the L, the part that's coming down from the crotch and leaving going around the hose. That's the L. So we're going to come into it. We never want to come from the other side. You would find that you have a pretty hard time doing that anyway. But wrap around this end, making a simple cross pattern. And then I'm going to pull down and snug up, and that is it. That's all I do. And now this will stay snug enough in the tree. Yeah, it's not extremely tight, but it's tight enough so that if there's even a little bit of tampering with this, this will stay in place. And I have yet to have one of these come undone when coming back to a given spot in that case. So we're going to do that one more time in more real time here, just so you can see. So here we are again, and ready to receive it. Pass that in coming off around the hose, pull it down through, and then we're going to work the slack out. All right, got it nice and snug at this point. We're going to cross back over and pull it down through, and that is it. That's how I fashion it. And the thing I really like about this is easy to tie, and it's very easy to untie. So all I would have to do when I'm ready to hunt, come out, pull this end out, be ready to receive it back on this side. I then take the end that has my highwayman's in it, which is a combustible knot at this point. So here it is. Just pull on this tag in, and it explodes out. Hook in and pull down to start going up the tree. So that's ultimately how I fashion my preset. That's it. There's nothing more to it other than that. So I can do this with gloves. I can do it in the ice. I can do it in the cold. I can do it in the dark. When I come down out of the tree, I can tie this up very easily, even without looking at it. I can feel my way into tying my highwayman's hitch just to snug that up and get it back around the tree in order to leave. So that's all there is to it.